Here we have a rooster on a balance beam, and we are given its position time graph, and we are asked to construct its velocity time graph and its acceleration time graph. To do that, we recall that the slope of the position time graph at any point is equal to the value of the velocity at that particular time. You can see here from this position time graph that this first segment has a positive slope, which means the velocity is some positive number, and that's a constant slope, so the velocity is a constant number. We don't know what the number is, but we can determine the shape of the velocity time graph simply by looking at the shape of the position time graph. Now, in the next segment of the position time graph, the slope of the position time graph becomes suddenly quite negative, and then not as negative, and then not as negative, and eventually right about there the slope is 0, and then it becomes a little positive, and the slope becomes a little more positive, and a little more positive, and a little more positive. So in other words, this velocity time graph will jump down to some negative value and will then increase like so. The slope of the position time graph is equal to the value of the velocity time graph. So here the slope is quite negative. Here not so much. Here equal to 0. If we then slide down to the velocity time graph, quite negative, not as negative, and 0 right there. What about the last segment of the position time graph? There, the slope is 0, and that completes our velocity time graph. What about our acceleration time graph? Acceleration is change in velocity over change in time. We talked in a previous lesson how the slope of the velocity time graph is equal to the value at any point of the acceleration time graph. If we look at the slope of this portion of the velocity time graph, we will see that that slope is 0. The slope of the next portion of the velocity time graph is positive and constant. So the acceleration time graph will jump up and be some positive constant number up until right there, and then when the velocity time graph is horizontal, that is no change in velocity, therefore no acceleration.